Coffee with Caregivers production costs are covered by a partnership with United Healthcare and the National Foster Parent Association. We receive no federal or state funding and depend on our constituents and viewers to help us achieve our goals to provide support and services that meet identified needs within our mission. We would like to welcome the viewers of Coffee with Caregivers to the family. The National Foster Parent Association offers several membership opportunities for individuals, child placing agencies, and state and local affiliates. You can join today or donate at nfpaonline.org.
Well, hi, everybody. You got me trying to adjust my blind a little bit here. Maybe that's a little bit better. Okay. Well, it's good to see everybody on this Tuesday morning. And I think we have a really good episode for you today. You'll see there beside me, Marion Rhines. Marion's kind of one of those people that's a jack of all trades, I guess you'd say. I mean, every time I talk with her, I learn something new about her, more exciting about her, and I can't wait to get into the conversation with her. My cup is one I think I used before, but you know, sometimes there's a verse that just speaks that you need it that day. And this is one of those days for me. And so my cup says, I will walk by faith even when I cannot see. And I've got some medical issues coming up with some surgery at the end of this week. And so it's kind of like, you know, I've put my trust in the Lord every day, and I need to remind myself of that everything is going to be good and fine and turn out just great. But, you know, I apologize if I've used this cup before, but it's one that I have in my kitchen that I often look at, and for my daily reminder of who's in charge ultimately. Okay, so Miss Marion Rhines. Marion wears a number of hats that I think are important for you, and she's going to talk to you about those. Of course, one is she's a wife and a mother. She was foster parent, they're adoptive parents. She's the executive director of the Tennessee Foster Care Association. I think she's like acting president, maybe even at this point. She's the walk chair for the National Foster Parent Association and manages our Walk Me Home program that I hope she'll speak to a little bit. And then she's a substitute teacher, okay? And then she's an author. And I've had the privilege, really the privilege of reading some of her manuscripts as she writes them. Boy, I wish I had that talent, Marion. It's just a blessing to be able to read your books. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce Marion Rhines. And Marion, if you would just talk to our audience a little bit about, you know, who you are and what makes you you. And then we'll go into the walk piece a little bit, maybe how things are going in Tennessee. And then we want to spend the most of our time, though, with you and your books and what's led you to become an author. I mean, how did that happen? At what stage in your life? Just all that, I think, because people find it fascinating. I do, because, you know, so many people nowadays think you got to know what you want to do with your life when you're 18, right? Or 20, right? No. And so it changes over time, and it certainly changed over time for you. And I think that's a fascinating piece of what you have to say. So good morning.
Good morning, Irene. I always joke about not knowing what I want to do when I grow up, and I'm not afraid to tell people my age. And so I turned 51 this year. And so I still don't know exactly what I want to do, but the longer time goes on, I do know that writing is a big part of it. I started writing poems in high school, and you know, I did a Walk Me Home poem we had on the table for our events. And so I joke around sometimes about, well, just give me a topic, any topic, and I can write a poem about it. And one day I was having some unruly children in art class. They're like, I don't want to draw. I'm not good at drawing. So I said, well, I'm not very good at drawing either, but I can write poems. So give me a topic and I'll write a poem for you while you're working. So somebody hollered out, the movie Shrek. So I was walking around the room monitoring and coming up with a poem. And by the time the class was over, I read it to them and they thought, that is so cool. You should post that online. So, it's just, I'm a rhyming poet. So I apologize ahead of time because I know not everybody likes rhyming poems. But it's just one of those things that I have to do it when the inspiration hits me. And it doesn't matter if it's 2:00 in the morning. I have to stop what I'm doing. I can't go to sleep until I get it out of my brain. So, but that's the whole crux of how I got into writing. Now, the first thing that I wrote that I published was a book in 2019, and it was called 2 Ways Home: A Foster Care Journey. And we are adoptive parents, and we did foster 2 separate times. And, I thought, well, my family's going through this, and there are other families all over the country and even the world who are foster parents, and, children just need to know that there are other children experiencing the same things they are. And so I just wrote a story, based on 2 children who were in the same foster home. And, by the title 2 Ways Home, one of the children is able to be reunited with their parents. And then the other one, sadly, has to be adopted. And it just goes through, how many people it takes to take care of a child in foster care, the workers, the foster parent support workers for the parents, school officials who are, on the support team as well, what holidays could be like, and ultimately, that resolution of, do I get to go home or do I have to get adopted? So that was really, really fun.
Well, it was a good start. But, the thing of it is that relatively short book, children's book, right? But was good for the adults as well, led to so much more.
Well, I was afraid at first that I had absolutely nothing of interest to write about in a novel. And someone had asked me, are you going to stay with children's books? Because I did the When Feelings Get Too Big book in 2020. And so I thought, I don't know if I have enough information, to carry out a full story. And then October of last year, when, all the Hallmark movies started coming out, I thought, well, I've watched enough Hallmark movies that I know how these work. And so I wanted to tell a foster care story at Christmas time. And so I just sat down and next thing you know, I have, a 70,000 word novel. And it seemed to make sense. It conveyed a message and people enjoyed it. So that was a big success. And then it just kind of went downhill from, not downhill. I guess it opened up the words from the deep, and I can't stop writing. So I'm on book number 6 now since October of last year. And my husband tells me, you've got to walk away from the laptop, put the laptop down. But he knows it's NaNoWriMo, and I have to finish the one I'm working on now. And then I told him I will, I'll stop.
Right. Would you explain what that is? A lot of people may not know what NaNoWriMo is.
Well, I didn't know either. NaNoWriMo stands for National Novel Writing Month. And what makes it so funny in this case is in September, I got an idea for a story, and I really have to stop going to get a massage because I get a lot of ideas when I'm talking to my massage therapist. I probably should tip her a whole lot more. I tip her well, but I probably should, make it really, really special since she, listens to me talk nonstop for an hour. But I got this idea, so I wrote the story. Well, had I known that National Novel Writing Month was November, I could have waited a little bit and wrote that novel in November, but then I wouldn't have gotten the idea to do a sequel for the amazing Abigail Morgan, which I'm beginning chapter 6. So things are getting really interesting for Sebastian and Abigail, and it's really fun creating situations and, having to resolve them. And I have a close friend who, like what you did for me with the first 2, she reads what I write and she's like, I didn't see that coming. So that's really encouraging that I can see things past people. So that's really fun.
Yeah. My youngest daughter, her godmother is an author too and writes, and I think she's working on something this month as well.
Mhm.
So if she gets it done, it'll be the first time she's ever written a book or a novel anywhere close to a month, because it usually takes her quite a long time to write hers. And so I was telling her about you, and I said, she said, well, her name was Cheryl, and she said, Irene, it takes me a year and a half sometimes to write a novel. And she writes for like the junior high age kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was telling her about how you were knocking these things out. And so I gave her the titles, and she said she was going to order the books and see what was going on. How come? I said, well, you're just this prolific writer. I mean, I don't know how you do it all, because you're balancing so many other things that are important to you too, and to your family in there. And she laughed because she's single. She is raising a daughter. Wasn't official foster care, but that's what it kind of turned out to be. And she said, I'm just have one daughter here, and I can't seem to find enough time to do the writing that I want to do. So I think maybe there are a lot of authors who can write that prolifically, but for me, you're very unique in that the words and the thoughts just seem to flow, and how you figure out some of the things you figure out is amazing to me. So your friend was right. I didn't see that coming kind of stuff happens in your books. And that's kind of what makes them so interesting, is because you want to keep reading. You don't want to put it down. I always love those kind of books. They get me in trouble because I can't go to sleep at night till I finish the whole book, and maybe I don't sleep at all. But that's okay, because it keeps the interest where it needs to be. So I know your husband says put the laptop down sometimes, but how do have your kids reacted to this, that Mama's an author and people are starting to read her books and know her name?
Well, my 10-year-old is jazzed because the second book, When Feelings Get Too Big, was based on him. He has sensory issues. So that's his story. And he goes around telling people, that's my book. Whenever it was coming out last year, he was Googling the picture on Amazon. It's like, that's my book, Mom. And so he's really excited. My daughter, I don't know if I'm embarrassing her at this point in my life, because she has friends that come over, and I mentioned what I'm doing, and they're like, that is so cool. Your mom is so cool. So I'm not sure if she's kind of, she hasn't read anything yet. But she's like, Mom, I'm going to read Abigail Morgan. I promise, but she's a senior this year. So she's, has band things going on. And then my two teenage boys, they have to read a certain amount of time in order to play video games. Otherwise they'll be on the screen the whole time.
Right.
And so whenever I write one, I let them read it, just, because it's geared for their age group, and to make sure what they think of it. And they're like, Mom, this is so cool. How did you get that to happen? Or I didn't know you did that, or I didn't know that you knew that. So it's mixed, kind of a mixed emotion thing. And my husband is also my editor. So part of the reason why he tells me to put the laptop down is because he's still working on editing Finding Love in Cedar Falls, which was book number 4 that I wrote. And so now we've got Then I Found You, and, the sequel to Abigail Morgan. And so he's kind of, up to his neck in papers that he has to edit for me. But he has a lot of, he's the first person I ask questions, like he helped me pick out the car for Abigail with her Carmen Gia. And in Finding Love in Cedar Falls, Andromeda's father loved Greek mythology. So he's like, well, why not have her, father drive a Phaeton, which is one of those, really classy cars, and so he gives me a lot of input. He helps me make things, he helps me go from the telling to the showing more. I mean, I can tell a story, I can write it down really fast and get it out there and, have it on paper, but he helps me with, showing more of the actions they're doing or how they're feeling, and that kind of thing. So he's always really supportive. I just need to slow down so he can catch up. But it's I would never have imagined that I would be doing that, because, I thought, well, I work in a doctor's office. I've worked in a pet store. I've worked, just about every kind of place imaginable that deals with working with people. And so just writing, telling stories is just a really, really nice way to unwind myself and create places and worlds that people want to escape to.
Yeah. Well, I may try to pick your brain in 2022. A colleague that I've known and worked with over the last probably 20, 25 years, who has authored several books, he's a child psychologist, has asked me to write a book with him in 2022 after my retirement at the end of this year. And so we're pretty serious about that happening. If I've never attempted, I don't even know how to start. I'm sure he can be helpful because he's, like I say, he's certainly written books on the topics of child psychology. But we haven't figured out how we're going to work the foster care experience and the real life, what happens 24/7 a day, and in foster care, in with his insights and things. So we want to make it a book that would be interesting, maybe have a little fun in it, because there's so many funny things that have happened over the years as in being a foster parent. But that's meaningful then too, that people can say, I learned something that might help me, finish in our foster care journey or our adoption journey. So I might have to pick your brain a little bit on.
Yeah, I would love that.
That'd be great. I wanted us to talk just a little bit about your role with the National Foster Parent Association. The organization is open to anybody who wants to be a member, who cares about the foster care in any way. And but it's not always easy to attract people to take on roles that take some responsibility. And first, I wanted to be able to publicly thank you for accepting the role of chair of the Walk Me Home Committee. For certainly championing that in Tennessee and other states as well. And so thank you for that. We want to grow the program and get the word out in 2022 more, so that others can understand the purpose of Walk Me Home. And what it can do for either their state or their foster care agency, or their organization that supports foster youth or families in some way. So I just kind of wanted to get a little bit of your thoughts on the program and why you think it's important for folks to consider, holding a walk in next year or in the future. In their locale.
Well, excuse me. The TFACA was very, insightful getting in on the ground floor whenever the Walk Me Home program first started. And I think that's the reason why we've had such a great success with it, because whenever it was started, I didn't join too much later, but they took the manual, everything that was involved in creating a walk. And over time, it didn't happen instantaneously, but over time, they were able to work both sides of the program, which is getting the participants for your actual walk event, as well as getting your sponsorships from local businesses. And, over time, we have been able to have some really huge walks. I think in 2019, we earned maybe a little over $20,000 in sponsorships and participant revenue for our Walk Me Home event, that's tremendous. The NFPA has a program that enables us to be able to earn that kind of money. The program itself can be a little scary because it looks like it's just so big, and I think that's why some organizations are afraid. It's not that it's a hard program. There are a lot of working pieces to it to make sure that everything goes smoothly with your walk. And that's where we have the advantage, because all of those pieces are already set in place. And for us, we just have to every year decide, okay, where do we want to have our walks? The same old places, or are we going to mix it up a little bit this year? So we have all of the infrastructure in place, knowing that it takes all of these people, as opposed to you see the manual for the first time and you're like, oh my gosh, I just can't do this. So I always tell people to just start small and work on the walk piece first. Get your date and your time, pick your place, and then start with participants. And then once you do that, if you're successful that year, then the next year, start working in the pieces of the sponsorship. Go out and tell your community, this is what we're raising money for. People like to know what cause you're trying to support. If they know that your foster parents need car seats for the small children, or they need a fund to be able to give money to foster parents before that first board payment kicks in for sports, fees. They want to be in band, or they want to do ballet, or they need this extra therapy that, they just can't start unless they have the money up front. Then the organizations they're dying to help people. And so that's just what you need to do, is make sure that you get out there and you explain what you're raising the money for. Our enrichment fund gives money back in the form of grants. We are able to give at least $250 to each family who asks for assistance. Sometimes we can't cover the entire amount of what they're asking, but we give them, the maximum amount that we're able to do for each child.
Yeah, and I think other states have done that as well. I know we did a couple in Texas some years ago, and that's what we're able to do is, kind of fund the wishes of some of these kids, and they weren't just outlandish wishes. They were, I want to be in the Boy Scouts, but I need money. We need money for uniforms, and there just isn't that money in the family or whatever. I mean, it was for things like that, and band. I know we did a lot of band instruments, and sometimes it was just renting them, and because they were seventh graders, didn't know if they needed a really one, but they were wanting to try, and we want our kids that come into foster care to have as normal a life as possible, and to have those advantages to be able to do the same things that other kids are doing. And so I think that, in that way, the raising of the funds is just critical. And it can certainly go for many other things as well, paying speakers to do trainings or whatever it might be, that particular agency or our state association or whoever might need. But the other thing that these walks do, I think that's so critical, is that it informs the community where it's held about the need, right? About what foster care is, who are the kids that come into foster care, no fault of their own, right? I mean, who can do that kind of work? How can you support foster care if you don't want to be a foster family? If you are interested, here's how to, learn more, right? And to also at the same time be saying to all those folks that are already fostering, thank you for what you're doing. We appreciate you. Come and join us so we can celebrate your family. They can be wonderful events and wonderful occasions. So I'm just hoping that as people hear us talk about this, and they'll go back to their associations or where they work or wherever and say, you know what, we ought to really do something like that with the NFPA, and have their expertise in how to do these things, and utilize their software for people to sign up to be a walker and to donate and things like that, so they don't have to have all that infrastructure themselves. And that's what we do for that, is we set up the mechanisms so they don't have those kinds of costs. And hopefully it's beneficial to everybody. So I think that's a pretty good thing to be doing.
It's an awesome program. I mean, we are just so blessed by being able to do those walks every year. And we're excited that hopefully in 2022, we can get back to having an in-person walk. So
yeah, these virtual ones have been real challenging. I got to admit.
I know. Well, they have been challenging. But I think our Nashville walk is already scheduled for May. I can't remember what date, and I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to be Olivia's graduation weekend. So I wish I could clone myself because I'm not sure how I can.
Well, we may have to take a look at changing that, but I don't know if that's been set in stone anyway yet. So that's a discussion certainly can have with the next executive director and the board of directors to make sure that all goes well. When you do your assistant teaching, when you go in and do your substitute work, do you utilize sometimes some of your storytelling ability or anything? I mean, depends on the ages of the kids you're working with, but just curious as to, because I was a substitute for some years, many years ago, but it was usually first, second, and third grade.
Uh-huh.
And so there were the little ones. And I know I had to get really creative sometimes to get their attention and to kind of hold their attention for a while. And I loved that age group because especially the first graders, I'd get at the end of the day and they'd hand me these little notes and, they'd walk out the door and I'd look, I love you. And I'm supposed to have been in there, and there as a substitute, stuff like that. I mean, it was just, they were so cute and so eager to learn, and all of that. I never substituted beyond third grade though. So I don't know what it's like to go up and do that with the older kids.
Well, I typically spend all my time in middle school, and I think that's why I ended up writing Abigail Morgan in a middle school, because that's where I have the most experience. And those are, I just like that age group of children because they're not so needy. They need constant attention. They're developing their personalities, and they're becoming who they're trying to get to, as their older teen years and getting ready to go on to high school. And I don't really teach a lot of information. I'm basically a chaos coordinator. I bought a T-shirt to wear. Hopefully there's school that just has chaos coordinator on it. And because they're usually given a Chromebook and they have assignments that they work on, independently while the teacher is out. So I basically just make sure that the order is kept, take attendance and that kind of thing. I do take candy sometimes, and so they are happy to see me whenever I come into the classroom. I've gotten some of it's this substitute. I love this substitute. So I've, grown a little bit on some of the students. And as far as the storytelling, I don't necessarily tell them stories, but I'll tell them that I'm working on writing a story, and I'll ask their input. And I'm like, okay, I've got a situation. I want to have a dance, but I need my main character to have a really cool costume. What should they be? And so I had a girl in 6th grade about 4 weeks ago say, well, how about a vampire? And so that's a cool idea. So, and then I found you, the main male character. He's dressed up as a vampire for Halloween because he's a teacher, and they have a Halloween dance. And so the main female character, she's dressed up as Wilhelmina Harker, who was a vampire hunter. So just kind of real cool things like that. One little girl, she found out that I wrote stories. I had given her teacher a copy of one of my books, and she's like, are you an author? And I said, yes, I am. And she asked me, are you famous? And I said, well, maybe someday. And so she just thought it was the neatest thing. And every now and then she'll catch me in the hallway, and I'll ask her, well, did you finish the book? And she said, no, but I like it. And so, it's just something really fun to, talk about with them, and just, try to get ideas and let them know that they're, plotting and helping me create some kind of story. So,
I think it's planting seeds for them too, though. I mean, maybe there's some writing ability that they don't even know they have, or an interest, and it kind of can put something to think about for the future,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because we all have talents and skills that are unrecognized at that age for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think about this author that I love to read. He writes a daily blog, Sean Dietrich, goes by Sean of the South. Just the first thing I read every single morning is his blog. Because he speaks to me. He's a down to earth
Mm-hmm.
writer, and all, and the topics are so heartwarming usually, and motivating and funny.
Mm-hmm.
all those kinds of things. And I think, I always think, I wish I could have that in me, and I look at you and feel the same way about, why can't I come up with those kinds of words and that flow? Another person I love to read is Rhonda Scortino, and
Rhonda, yes,
Rhonda's wonderful, and her way of writing too is fulfilling and just exudes kindness, and understanding, and love radiates from everything. And again, when I look at your books and the content and know you're kind of like that too. I guess I gravitate to people who write with feeling and emotion about everyday things, right? That real life, that it's not science fiction or it's not murder mystery. It's it's everyday life that becomes so important and so meaningful with the way it's expressed in the books. And so I appreciate the way you do that so very much. Trying to think, is there anything else you'd like to talk about a little bit before we say goodbye?
Well, you mentioned Rhonda. I just want to say it is so, how do you say, providential in the sense that she and I was able to meet at the conference in California. And since then, she has been a really, 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 really great source of encouragement for me with my writing also. And like I didn't have enough things going on. I came across this ad for writer needed for a group here in Chattanooga, looking for somebody to write for the Rise Up Cooperative, and they are an organization who ministers to aging out and at-risk foster youth. And so since I have my Tips from the Flip Side blog, I thought, well, hey, I could do a blog for you, not realizing exactly what I was getting myself in for. So I kind of just rearranged a little bit of what I do on the Tips blog to make it something different for the Rise Up Cooperative. But where Rhonda comes in all of this is I can encourage people with, a quote or, a really funny joke that makes them think, oh my gosh, I can't believe she put that in there, to get your laugh for the day, and just give you a little bit of maybe sage wisdom, of, don't be a squirrel. You don't want to make a decision, don't stand in the middle of the road too long. But beginning in December, I'm going to have a podcast link in the blog section or in my blog. And Rhonda is going to be one of the contributors for podcasts. Dr. DeGarmo has agreed to be a contributor, as well as our friend Simon Ben.
Oh,
so
good.
I don't have all the knowledge that the aging out foster youth need to be able to be successful. But between the three of those people, Simon, who's, lived an adoptee, lifestyle, Rhonda, who has been in, foster care and has become extremely successful in her own right, and then Dr. DeGarmo and how he ministers to people through his organization, I can at least share resources of what they have to say to folks through my blog. So that's really exciting. So I can't do that, but I can at least connect these precious youth to people who have been there where they are and can give them some encouragement as well.
Absolutely. And, there's some others that probably would be happy to do that with you too. If you're looking for more people to help you with those kind of spots in the podcast, let me know, because I'm thinking of two former foster youth right now. Angela Kiata Banks, who wrote the Black Foster Child Handbook.
Oh.
And Justin and Alexis Black, who were both in and wrote Redefining Normal, their book, which is outstanding. And they were actually speakers at our conference in June. And so we have a very nice working relationship with them. So they've also been on Coffee with Caregivers. And, I think it would be fairly easy probably because they're younger and they're not so many years out of the situation of having to what happens now. I'm not in foster care anymore, kind of thing. So if you want, some information about how to get a hold of them, just let me know, and I'll send that to you. I brought Rhonda up. Our audience knows that I'm retiring at the end of 2021, and Rhonda sent a thing the other day, and she said, I write an article every month for American Essence magazine, and I'm writing an article about you for the December issue. And I went, oh my gosh. And so actually she said, I need some pictures of your family, so the editor can decide what they want to use. Yesterday she sent me the draft of the article, and I was just in tears after I finished reading it, because she's such a gracious writer. And I guess just everything that's happening right now in my life, and I'm more emotional than I typically am on any given day, but it was just kind of overwhelming when you see people put in words what they think your life has meant to other people. Mm-hmm. So I'll be anxiously awaiting that in that magazine when it comes out in December. I think that our time is about up. I'm looking at the clock here, Marion. So, the best to you and all your future books. And I'll talk with you soon about maybe helping me do my part in the one that I'm looking to do as well.
Well, that sounds exciting. And you might find yourself written in as a character in one of my books now. So I'll let you know ahead of time before I do that. I don't want to just throw that at you from left field. I have a friend, our former neighbor at our other house. The man next door was a basketball coach, and so he has a small cameo in Abigail Morgan as the basketball coach. And so when I was writing the sequel, I asked my neighbor, do you think he would mind reprising his role? And she said his agent is agreeable, so he's all right with it.
That sounds wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your really, really, really busy schedule to talk with us this morning. I so appreciate it. And I value you so much as a friend.
Well, thank you, Irene. And thank you, NFPA, for having me on the program.
All right. And thanks to everybody for being a part of our episode today. And we look forward to talking with you next week. Bye.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with our friends at United Healthcare. For more information about United Healthcare, please visit www.uhc.com.